Welcome, everybody, to All Things Rex Worldwide. It's another Thursday, and I have a fabulous guest here with me today that I'm very excited about. I know if you've been following the blurbs about who's coming, I know you're excited too. It's Don Most, and he's probably best known as co-starring as Ralph in the TV series Happy Days. Now, more recently, you've seen him as Man's Best Friend, When George Got Murdered, ParallaxTale, Lifetime's Holiday in Santa Fe, and County Line No Fear. Plus, he's been on the TV pilot Puckheads, Harvest Time. He stars opposite Anson Williams, who you remember as Potsie from Happy Days. Old Buddies with Robert Wuhl and Scramble opposite Gail O'Grady and in Viral. Now, Don's gone back to his first love, singing, and he sings the standard swing tunes, big band style of music, and is mounted to show D Mostly Swinging, and he's released the CD. He produces, he directs, he stars, he acts, he does all these different things in TV and movies, plus a whole lot more. He has other interests as well. I'm going to bring him on now, and we're going to talk to Mr. Don Most about all manner of wonderful things. So stay with me. Now, before I bring him on, please go ahead and like the show, share the show, hit the share button, push it out there so other people can join us. And let's get going here with Don. Don, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Rex. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic, and I'm so glad that you're here. And before we launch into Happy Days and some of this stuff, I know that you're very busy. You've got some travel plans coming up and different things. So I just want to say how grateful I am that you could be here today with us.
Oh, my pleasure. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask you this? I'd like you to, if you would, how you got Happy Days. You've been in the business now some 40 years, and one, that kind of longevity is incredible because not everybody has it. So that's awesome. But number two, there are a lot of people watching who might be actors or want to be actors or filmmakers who would like to know, well, how do I get started, or how did you get started, Don, and what kind of advice you might have, or what kind of opening tale, how you got into acting and how you got on Happy Days and all those kinds of things, in the form of not only your story, but in something that might inspire and give them some kind of direction.
Yeah, I mean, how I did it, I guess it's different with everybody to some degree. There might be certain things that overlap most people's experience. For me, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and I started really getting into and pursuing acting and singing and all that. When I was about 13, I started going on Saturdays because I was going to, regular public school. But on Saturdays, I would take the subway into Manhattan and go to this school for this first one catered to kids and teenagers, and it was more on the singing side that initially is where my stronger focus was, and through that I actually got asked to be part of a nightclub review of kids from 14 to 16 years old, and there were 7 of us, and I got to do it, perform in the nightclubs up in the Catskill Mountains the summer I was turning 15. So it's quite an experience for someone my age, and I was very excited. But after that, I decided to, long story, but I switched my focus. I really wanted to pursue, put my concentration on acting. And I think I'd been seeing some plays in New York, on Broadway, and then some of the great films that were in the 60s, mid 60s and late 60s, some great films. And, my heroes, like Paul Newman and Dustin Hoffman and Jack Nicholson. And the first film I saw him in was a movie called 5 Easy Pieces. And I just was electrified by those. And so I went to a more serious acting class when I was 16, and I spent a couple of years there. And then that's how I got a manager through that school that I was going to, I was recommended to this manager, and then she got me to meet with agents in New York, and I started doing auditions, mainly commercials. I started getting a lot. I did very well and did a lot of national commercials, and I got to understand what it was like working in front of a camera, because up until then the training was geared more towards theater. So this was a very valuable thing to learn. And then I was going to college too, and still going on auditions in New York while I was going to school in Pennsylvania. It was crazy. And then I decided to come out to California during the summer after my junior year in college. And I was only going to spend the summer, but I made some good contacts through the agents in New York. They recommended agents in LA when they knew I was going out there. And I met with several, and I signed with an agency. It was called the Jack Fields Agency. It was a good boutique agency. And then they sent me out on a few auditions while I was there during the summer, and I landed a couple of parts right away. And so then, this is 1973, the summer of 73. And I was supposed to go back for my senior year after the summer. But the agents convinced me. They said, you got some momentum going. You did really well pretty quickly. And we think you could do really well if you stayed out for, maybe you could take 6 months off of school and let's see what we can get going, because, you had such a good start. So I did. I decided not to go back to school. I took 6 months off, and I got another part, but then nothing for several months. And I was like, oh, I made a big mistake, But then the audition for Happy Days came along. My agent told me it's a new show about the 50s. Graffiti was hot at the time, American Graffiti. So so this show, even though they had shot a pilot for it almost 2 years earlier with Ron Howard and Anson Williams, it didn't sell then. So, but now they were trying it again, since Graffiti was hot and Grease was big on Broadway. So I had several auditions. The next one was with Gary Marshall, who created the show, and about 10 other people. And then they asked me to come back for a screen test, which I did. And I was auditioning for Potsie. They weren't auditioning anybody for Ralph. It was a small part in the pilot script. It was not supposed to be a regular role. So I was auditioning for Potsie and did the screen test. And that's how it all happened. And they told me, my agent says, well, you didn't get the role of Potsie, but they like you so much they want to create a regular role for you. And there's a small part in the pilot for a guy named Ralph, and they'll make it a regular character. And so that's how that came about.
Wow. Well, wasn't Happy Days first on like Love American Style or on something else? It was like one episode that then.
Yeah, well, that was the first pilot that I was referring to, that Ron Anson and Marion Ross was in it too, but it was a different father. It was an actor, Harold Gould, played it in the original pilot, but it didn't sell. So, to get some use out of the pilot, ABC said, oh, well, we could throw this on an episode of Love American Style. So we get some get something for the money we put in making this pilot. And so that's how it aired. But then they made a new pilot. This about a year and a half later. We did it in like November, December of 73. And then this one sold and went on the air as a mid-season replacement very quickly. We came on in January, and it was like, a whirlwind. It just all then happened very quickly.
Well, and the show was such a huge hit, and it lasted for so many years. The amount of friends that you made, who were your colleagues, the regular cast, but the number of guest stars and small part players and people that came through there must be legion. I mean, you have a wealth of friends and memories from just that series alone.
Oh my gosh, yeah, incredible. I mean, the people that worked on that show, obviously the cast. I mean, it was an incredible cast that we all got along just wonderfully, and professionally and personally. That's where a lot of that chemistry, I think, came from. That you can't, you can't bottle it, and it just, it's a little bit of lightning in the bottle, and it was a really talented cast that worked hard, and we had a lot of fun, but we took it seriously, and we had great people leading us, like Gary Marshall, as I mentioned, our creator and exec producer, who was amazing, just amazing, and then our director Jerry Paris, who worked with Gary, and Jerry worked together on the Dick Van Dyke Show all those years. So having Jerry as our director, he was a force of nature and a comedic genius also, like Gary. So, and then a lot of the other writers and producers were all fabulous. So yeah, and then, like you said, some of the people that came through, the guest stars, we had some great people. Penny Marshall and Cindy Williams came on and did a show, and then that spun off and became Laverne Shirley. And this unknown comic came on to play. It was like a dream sequence, and he played sort of like a guy from outer space. And who better to play a guy from outer space than Robin Williams, who then they spun that off into Mork and Mork and Mindy, and and then so many other. There were a lot of other. Amy Irving played my girlfriend in one episode, and she hadn't done much in L.A. and so many. Linda Pearl, who I was friendly with, and I introduced them to, and then she wound up being a regular later. But and then we had guests like Danny Thomas and Pat O'Brien was a guest star in our show, and and Lorne Green and even the guy from Buffalo from Howdy Doody, but the guy played not Buffalo Bob. I can't remember now, but
yeah, I would have said Buffalo Bob.
Yeah, but it's just amazing experience. And then being on the Paramount lot, I got to go and I'd sneak onto sets when I'd hear that there were certain movies being shot. I mentioned that, one of my acting heroes when I was first starting, I saw Five Easy Pieces and Jack Nicholson. He was it for me. And then I heard they were shooting this movie called Chinatown, little movie called Chinatown, and direct with Nicholson and Faye Dunaway and Roman Polanski directing. So I snuck onto this. It was a closed set, but I'm wearing my 50s outfit, and this is supposed to be in the 30s. So it's kind of similar. So it almost looked like I belonged on the set somehow. So they didn't chase me out, and I snuck on there, and I got to see Jack, and then I wound up having like a 20-minute conversation with Nicholson, and I was like, I went back to the set, and I was telling Ron Howard, you can't believe it. I just talked to Nicholson for like 20. I was so excited, So it was just amazing. And John Lennon came to our set one day with his son Julian, unannounced. We're sitting there rehearsing a scene. It's the first year, and Anson, who plays Potsie, said, this guy just walked in. He was getting some coffee, and he said, some guy walked in, looks a lot like John Lennon. And we're like cracking up, yeah, right, sure, John Lennon. And then also we see this guy walk off with the sunglasses and the hair, and we're like, oh my God, is that? And it was him. He was taking Julian, his son, around. They were going to go to Disneyland, and I guess they'd seen a couple of episodes of Happy Days, and so they visited. So it was pretty surreal for me, coming from Brooklyn, and then this happening pretty quickly, and sort of a Twilight Zone. I was in the Twilight Zone now.
That is so beautiful. I mean, yeah, wow, those days. I want to ask you, how do you think? Well, two things. One is comedy back then was a lot different than it is today. The rules differed. They had network television. There were, kind of censors, like almost the Hayes office in the film, in the early film days, where you couldn't say certain things or get away with what a lot of people get away with now.
Oh yeah.
Having worked in the Catskills, then you understand those who work blue and those who don't, and that kind of thing. It's easy to be dirty, but it's hard to be clean. What was it like? The difference between then doing comedy and today, doing comedy. I mean, some of it's the same.
I guess for me, it wasn't, because I didn't know anything different. So at the time, it was, if it's, I'd done scenes in acting class. I'd done a lot of scenes from all different kinds of plays. So we did Neil Simon plays, or other comedies. And so I felt like, if the writing is good and the characters nicely, if you get a sense of who the character is and you're working with good people, and if it's fun, if the writing is funny and, and it has all the right elements, then that was what mattered, because I was not a comedian. I was an actor who could do comedy. So I was never going to try to go up and do stand-up comedy and do an act, that might be blue or clean. So it was just the material. And if the material was good and you're being honest in the moment and having a sense of comedy, but still having to be kind of real. And if you're working with good people and you have a director like Jerry and Gary up there, then that's what made it, I made it flow. There were a couple of times I remember feeling, oh gosh, like maybe there was something written in the script, and then they tell us a couple of days later, oh, we have to cut that out. We can't shoot it like that because, it's the censors or whatever. They said it's too much, and I'd be frustrated, like, oh no, that was so good to do it that way. We can't do that. There's nothing bad about that. We'd feel like it was being, they were being so squeaky clean about it. And so that there were times when I got, oh, this would have been much funnier if they'd let us say that, or if they let us show this, So sometimes it got a little frustrating, but for the most part, we just relied on working with the fellow actors and doing good material.
Oh, that's great. So thanks for sharing that. And I want to encourage the viewers who are growing in number here too, to feel free to leave comments and ask questions. And if we can, Don will answer them, while we're live. And Don, how about this? Way back then, and we'll go back and focus on Happy Days, but the difference between that industry then, when you were doing commercials, auditioning, and you got the pilot, you got the show. I mean, that's a wonderful thing. First off, to have someone say, "We like you so much, we're going to write a part for you and put you in the TV series." But that's an actor's dream, I would think. But how does it?
But you want to hear a crazy thing, which I didn't tell you. I initially turned it down. When my agent called me up on this Friday and said, you didn't get Potsie, but they want to create this other role, there's a small part in the pilot, and they'll, they could build it and it could grow, and you'll be guaranteed so many episodes. I, at the same time, was up. I had auditioned. I was more interested in drama than comedy at that. That's where my head was at. I was more, and most of the parts that I had gotten out in LA were dramatic parts. I played a guy who gets paralyzed in an accident in a show called Emergency, and then I did a police story where I played a psychopath. So a mad bomber. So I was more interested in drama, and I was up for this TV movie. Written by a guy named Herman Raucher, who had written the movie Summer of 42, which I thought was a great movie. And I was excited. And the guy who was going to be directing was a guy named Buzz Kulick, who had directed the first Bryant song, which was the highest rated TV movie for many, many years. So I'm going, I want to be in that project. And I auditioned for it. And I gave a great audition. And my agent says, you've got a really good chance of getting this. They told him, but they weren't going to know for about a week. So on that Friday, when they offered me the Happy Days role, my agent and I talked, and we decided I said, I'd really like to do the dramatic one. So we passed on the show. But as luck would have it, my agent played basketball every Saturday at Gary Marshall's house. So then Gary had to talk with my agent and convinced him that he thought the show was going to make it as a mid-season replacement. They offered me more money, and he said, we'll give him more guaranteed episodes. So after talking to then we decided to take it, but it almost didn't happen for me. If my agent hadn't played basketball there, who knows, you know?
Well, I guess it's nice to have someone in your corner who knows better than you do.
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah. I mean, looking back, oh my God. I thank my lucky stars.
Let me ask you, because we have people who are asking questions, and at least two people have said, "What's your favorite episode of Happy Days?" And then Jenny asks, what was one of your most memorable experiences filming Happy Days? Now, you mentioned the Nicholson experience is certainly a memorable experience, but
Yeah.
I think some of them also want to bring it back to memorable on set with.
Favorite episode is so tough, because there were a bunch of them, but I tend to, I'm a little biased, so I tend to favor some of the ones where my character, because Gary was great. He would always give, even though I was not one of the stars, I was a supporting character, but I became one of the regulars. But he would make sure we would always get at least one episode a year, maybe two, where the story revolved around your character. So the very first time that happened was in the third season for me. And so this episode meant a lot to me, and I worked really hard on it. And it turned out, there's a lot of other ones too, but this one I'm a little partial to. And it was the one where somebody demolished Fonzie's motorcycle, and he was devastated. He was out to get the guy who did it. It turns out I had accidentally backed into his bike, and then I panicked, and then it was stuck, and I went backwards and forwards, and I just totally destroyed it. And I was hiding pieces in mailboxes and all that. And then I was going to run out west to get away because I knew I'd be dead. It was a really well-written episode, and the first one that my character was highlighted. So I'm partial to that one, I'd say. Now, for the most memorable moment filming, that is almost impossible because, there were so many. I think what I remember, what really stands out for me when people say, what do you remember most? And it was when we started changing from being a one-camera show to a three-camera show, meaning at the beginning we were shooting it like a movie, a different scene in this set, and then maybe in the morning, and then you have another scene later in the day. You're shooting out of order like a movie. Then we changed into a three-camera style in the third season, and we would shoot Friday nights with an audience, and we'd rehearse all week. But now, for the first time, because when we were doing it the other way, we didn't have a lot of interaction with the writers or Gary, not mainly with Jerry, and who was directing. But now we would have a read through on Monday with all the writers and the producers, and we'd have notes and talk about it. And then we'd start rehearsing on Tuesday with Jerry and Wednesday. Then on Wednesday, we'd have a run through, and all the writers and Gary and some other producers would be there to watch the run through. And then we'd all have a session together and go and talk about where there were problems, have notes. And it was such a collaborative and fervently creative period, those meetings. And we'd have that again on Thursday night, and then on Friday after the dress rehearsal. So to me, those were some of my favorite moments. I mean, there were so many other great ones, but the sense of working together so cohesively like that and creatively, those are the memories that really stand out for me sometimes.
Wow. Do you think that much has changed between those early days of making television and how we do it today?
Well, I think the 3 or 4, they use 4 or 5 cameras sometimes now, I think those are probably pretty similar. I think so. I haven't done, a 4-camera shoot in so many years, so I can't speak from experience, but I think that they're probably shot in a similar way. But I think there's a difference in the 1-camera shows than back then, because back then, the hour shows, most of the hour shows were the ones that were 1 camera. Half hour were started. Some of them were one camera, like we were. MASH was one camera, but most of them during that period were the big shows were the 3 camera, and I think, but the ones that were one camera for an hour, they had to shoot very fast. They were shooting a whole hour show in, I don't know, 7 days or something. Today, for some of these shows that are for an hour, they take much more time, almost like a movie. I don't know, they could spend 2 weeks. They spend a lot more money, and they don't have to rush. So my sense is that that's why the quality of some of the dramas are really good, because they're able to take so much more time than they used to. Comedies, I don't know. I don't know if the comedies today are any better. That's a tough question, but I don't think there's as much a variance as there is with the dramas.
Well, the equipment certainly has changed, and much of it's gotten lighter and more mobile and moving. And now there's Video Village and features, where back in the day in the 70s, you were, a director had a viewfinder. I mean, look at their,
true. Yeah, yes, definitely. I mean, they can move quicker, and it's easier to do it, but they are spending more money on them too, and it's more time. So I'd say that there's a bigger difference in the dramatic shows, I think.
I would agree with you. I think they're better. I mean, in many ways, because they're now like, an entire series is like a movie. I mean, you have a character story arc that can last over 5 or 6 seasons, where it used to be wrap it up in the episode.
Definitely.
I want to again encourage people. We're going to have to take a commercial break here in just a couple of moments, but before we do, I want to remind people to be sure to be able, ask questions and leave comments. So we've got a number of them. One question, and it's going to shift the topic a little bit, but I'm happy to do that. And that is, do you prefer to act, direct, or produce? From Teresa asked that question.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Teresa, for that question.
Sing, for that matter.
Or sing. First off, producing it was never something that I want to. I did that out of necessity on some of the shows, like to help get them made, or to help out. Mainly, my real passion is in acting and directing and singing. It's so hard to pick between them, because it depends. If on this particular role, I might not have had it was a good experience acting, but on this role and the script, it was great. It's hard to compare that with singing, because in singing, you're picking out all the material. So it's all the material. It's like, it's great material. You don't always get to do that as an actor. Some is okay, some are good, and then once in a while you get lucky and it's great material. So it's hard to compare. Now with directing, that's a little again, if I'm directing something, because I've only directed independent films and some theater, so I'm picking the material that I've chosen to direct. So it's hard, because as an actor, I just don't always. I would say probably if my favorite thing to do is if I'm having a great role in a film with great actors and a great director, that would probably be my favorite thing to do, more so than the others. But the others are a close second. They're right behind.
Well, and we're going to take a commercial break in just a few seconds, but, just as a comment, someone has pointed out that a director might make 5 or 10 movies, or maybe 20 in a lifetime, but you could have 1,000 different parts that you play as an actor. So
absolutely. Yeah, that's true. It's hard to compare. It's not always apples to apples,
Absolutely. So let's take a quick commercial break with the Los Angeles Tribune. We'll be right back with Don Most, Ralph, star of Happy Days and so many other TV shows and movies, and we'll be right back.
Welcome to the Los Angeles Tribune page. Here you will find original news programming, exclusive digital events, and shows that are directly from the community. At the Los Angeles Tribune, we believe in giving a voice to the voiceless. We are proud to be the only national brand to empower everyday people to make a difference. Since 1886, our reputation has been built on truth and responsibility. Thank you for watching and making a difference.
For general inquiries, contact today. Thank you on behalf of the Los Angeles Tribune team.
Wow, and welcome back. I got to say, Dan says the show is pulling nostalgic heartstrings. Ashley goes, is Happy Days your favorite role? And then there's another question coming up. But I got to say, I have the best job in the world because I'm sitting here with Don Most, and I get to talk with Don and share that with the world. I can't tell you how wonderful this is, Don.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm very pleased, and I'm happy that people are a lot of fans here. And the show, if they pushed it out and share it, and the replays will be available as when we're done. A lot of people will see this, and a lot of people who know you and follow you, and those that remember, and those that are yet to find out. It's a great opportunity. So let's go with the first question. Is Happy Days your favorite role? And if you say no, I wouldn't be surprised. If you say yes, I wouldn't be surprised either. I'm saying,
yeah, it's tough because it's comparing isn't always fair, apples to apples, because TV as opposed to film, and especially the way we were having to shoot then. I guess I would say, and also because I did Happy Days, for 7 seasons, and working with those people. So I would say for television, yes, it's my favorite role. It was my favorite role for television, but for film, it would be something else, like some of the more recent films I did. Again, was it your favorite role because of the script? Well, on Happy Days, I did 170 different episodes of scripts, and some were better than others. But overall, yes, it was my favorite TV role. But I'd say for film, some of the recent ones I did, a movie called Lost Heart, and then Man's Best Friend. I think they're both on Amazon. I did Lost Heart a few years ago, and both of them just a couple of years ago. So those, I would encourage people to check those out on Amazon. And Man's Best Friend is also MBF. I play a defense attorney representing a wounded vet. It's a pretty heavy film and pretty compelling. And Lost Heart, I play a small town pastor, and it's very quirky, and there's comedy and drama and some fun subject matters that you and I discussed earlier is in the film. The UFO aspect is that's part of the film. Yeah, there's Lost Heart. It's a really, really lovely film. So people could check it out on Amazon and MBF as well.
Well, what I also appreciate, as an actor, what you said is that, when you started, you were in drama, and then you got a comedy, and it's cool. You get to do both, and yet, some things, there's some things you look at and you go, yeah, I was great in that, or wow, I sucked in that, or I was, all sorts of different reasons why you might like or not like something. Teresa asks this question of you again, which is, what genre would you like to work in, or what role do you want to do that you've yet to be offered? I have a feeling someone wants to write you a role.
Well, that might be nice. You never know. Genre, I guess, to me, if the script is really good, whatever genre it is, if it's really well written and I love the character, the genre is not that important to me. Although I don't know that I'd want to do, a really graphically violent horror kind of stuff that's just for the, that's more gratuitous than anything, as opposed to, if it's a film where that's a, beautifully done script, but there is something that is very important to the script that is necessary, that's different. So, but genre, I think what I would love to do is if there was and I did a little bit of that in Lost Heart, but I'd like to go further with something that has both comedy and drama in it, and they kind of are seamless. You go, that's the way life is, where a movie is both. It could be dramatic, but it also could be funny, and it can go back. And that's in MBF, where I play the defense attorney. That's mainly dramatic, and Lost Heart was probably more dramatic, but had some comedy. But I'd love to do something where, it's almost equal, both comedy and drama, and that would be what I'd love to do.
That's very cool, and to have something written that way where it's
Yeah.
where it, you don't want to call it a dramedy, that kind of thing, but it just has that.
Yeah, I guess something like that, something like a dramedy. I don't know. Yeah, where it's kind of seamless, where it's a natural ebb and flow of the way things are.
Well, now there's a comment for you on behalf of my fellow soldiers and service members. Thank you for bringing such an honor to that role.
Oh, thank you so much. That's really nice of you to say. Yeah, I was very proud to be part of MBF and got to meet some very brave veterans and the whole subject of I was defending a wounded vet and his problems with reassimilating back into civilian life, and the writer DJ Perry did a fabulous job of that and focusing some light on that in a really important way. So thank you for that comment. And yes, I was very proud to be part of that. Yes, for Lost Heart. I was nominated at a big festival last year, about a year ago in Orlando, the International Christian Film Festival, and I won Best Supporting Actor in a feature film. And it's not like the movie it was just, it had those values are there, but it wasn't like it was a I don't know, people might think of a Christian film. Is it a religious film? No, it's just the values that are akin to people who want to keep movies in a certain way and uphold those values and themes and good themes and really great characters that you inspirational, all that kind of stuff. It's just a really good movie, and it happens to fall into those guidelines.
Wow. Well, I'm going to ask you this on the air, and don't feel obligated to say yes by any means, but I'd love to have you back at another time, because there's just so much to talk about with you on air, both Happy Days and other things. But I do want to turn, because you've done other things in these other movies and other shows. We also share some friends in common who you've worked with, and then there's some off the chart kind of stuff too that we could talk.
Right.
And, so I'd like to be able to get to all of that. But Lydia Cornell, for example, she was on the show not that long ago, dear friend of mine and yours, and so recently you did something with her.
Yes, it was great to work with Lydia, because I'd met Lydia way back. She had just graduated from the University of Colorado in Boulder, and somehow she was visiting the set of Happy Days. I don't know who she was there to meet. I don't even remember, but we started talking and we became friends and hung out back then for a while. And then we didn't see each other for years. Then I wound up doing an animation, a voice, and she was doing a voice on a CBS special. And then we'd run into each other here and there. And then she came to see me sing at a couple of the clubs when I've been doing the jazz clubs. But very recently, we did a project together. It's a series called Viral Vignettes, and it's about 11 short films basically. And I was kind of involved in exec producing it, and I starred in 3 of the episodes, and I directed one, and the one I did with Lydia was I directed her and Linda Pearl, and it was an episode called Care Package, and they were great. It was a really funny, very funny episode. It has to do with, it was during COVID, so we were all doing it on our computer, and it was dealing with, all the stories were with people who dealing with COVID, and we were shooting it on our own computers, and with the producer director sort of overseeing it. And it was a very interesting experience, and they came out great. And it's been winning a lot of awards at festivals, all kinds, individual the individual episodes, and then as the whole movie's been, and we're in talks with somebody right now for distribution, and we're working on editing it all together. But Lydia was great in that, and it was so much fun to direct her after all those years. I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Rex.
My bad. I sometimes mute because of my dogs.
Right.
We got COVID bound, everything is like still in home, and so it's like one of those. The dogs sometimes bark. So if you've heard them, they're simply saying hi. We love Don too, and
okay.
But Lydia was on my show not that long ago, and she I don't remember. I have to go back, but I encourage you, if you haven't seen the episode, to watch her. But either she told me in private or told us on air how you and she met, and I just remember it being a good time and a fun time.
Yeah.
So
but she was so lovely then, lovely now.
Truly. So and then Misty Rowe. I mean, I first met Misty like in 75, early 75 or late 74. And then she got When Things Are Rotten. She started as Maid Marian with Dick Gautier, and that was like stage 17 on the Paramount lot or whatever. But
and we had her on our show as Wendy the Car Hop.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
and then she went to Hee Haw.
Then she was on Hee Haw for many years. I can't remember how many. And I've recently worked with Misty on the stage singing, because so she's been like a guest in one of my shows, and then we did a show together, and we're looking to do some more together. It's a lot of fun.
That's so cool. She's such a nice person.
Oh my God, yes.
Such a wonderful person, and
she sure is.
I mean, I just reconnected with her after many. I mean, 30 years ago we talked. I mean, and discovered each other on Facebook. So that was a trick. And because either you or she were posting some of the stuff from Happy Days, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to connect with Misty again. And
great.
And so that was
terrific.
Now we share another friend, and who we both know, and as a result, we share other friends in the film business. But this is Don Schmidt.
Right. Yeah, Don. Well, Don is, for people who don't know, he's sort of one of the leading research writers in the field of ufology. And, he's written several books. The one that I read was Witness to Roswell, which was a great read. And he spent so many years researching, serious research into, of events, witnesses, corroborating, cross-referencing. I mean, really getting into it in a serious way, and is very well respected in that field. And I was surprised when you told me, Rex, that you've known Don a long time, and that was great to hear. And as I was telling you earlier, I have a project with a partner of mine, Bryce Zabel, he's kind of known in the UFO world because he's very, very, very knowledgeable.
Did and Fire in the Sky, was that Bryce?
No, he didn't do Fire in the Sky. He wrote the first movie for the Sci-Fi Channel, and it was a UFO. It was about UFO. Oh gosh, the name of it escapes me right now. But he started out as a CNN journalist before he got into show business. So he's a serious journalist, and he's done a lot of research into this as well. He and we were on Coast to Coast together, and he's been a guest on Coast to Coast many times. But we had optioned one of Don Schmidt's books, Witness to Roswell, along with another book by the late Stanton Friedman, a book called Top Secret Magic, and we developed it into a movie, and it's excellent. So hopefully we're going to be able to get that made. That's what's one of my bucket lists or wish lists or whatever you want to call it.
Oh, that's great. Well, Don was a guest on this show too, and then I do another show called Rex Sikes Movie Beat, and I had Don on an episode of that as well.
Great.
talking about when they, you know, he was associate producer on the Roswell movie with Kyle MacLachlan and
oh right, yeah. I remember that. Yeah, that was some years ago on Showtime. That film, right?
I don't. I think it was. I thought it was Network. I don't remember. It's so many years ago, but it may have been Showtime. You may be correct. It was.
Yeah. It was good. I really enjoyed that, and it's time for another one like this one. You know, where ours is, you know, based on all the actual events and witnesses and a lot of real. I mean, there's a certain amount of fictionalizing that we had to do, but we're not really glorifying it and making up stuff, because there's enough incredible stuff in the truth.
Having known Don for 20 or 30 years, the stuff that I feel privileged to when we have lunch or dinner and you know, and meetings or whatever, there's just so much. And then you know, a lot of it ends up in his books, but sometimes I get, you know, like you do, you know, we get to hear about stuff that a lot of people don't hear about while they're going through the process of researching it. So,
right.
if you know, I would love to see you make that movie, you know, based on his book, because
yeah,
what I do appreciate about Don, I mean, I really do, because you know, there's good science and bad science. I mean, there are people out there who have agendas on either. When I first met Don many years ago, he was just very, you know, I'll tell you what I don't know, and I'll tell you what we know, and I'll tell you what we think, and you know, and I've been with him now all these years to notice how his opinions have gotten stronger in some areas or weaker in other, or not weaker, but you know, he's changed his what he says, but he's dedicated to uncovering truth.
Yes, absolutely.
Accurate information, and he doesn't want to snowball anybody, and he's not the kind of guy who goes, well, I wrote some books, so I have to say this. If it turned out that everything was wrong, he would go, it's wrong. That's just the kind of integrity that he demonstrates.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
So very cool. So we still have so many questions. So we're back to happy days. Thanks, Ashley. And I'm happy to go any which way the viewers want to go.
Thank you, Ashley. I just saw her comment. That's very
funniest cast member.
Funniest cast member on Happy Days. Well, thank you so much. That's very kind, and I appreciate that. You know, I had the, I don't know if it's an advantage, but Jerry Paris was a very, very funny man, and he took a real. We connected, and I started borrowing things from Jerry to put into the character of Ralph, because I wasn't really like Ralph. I was never the guy who wanted to be the funniest guy in the room. I wasn't like that. Jerry was kind of like that, you know. And so I would be influenced by him, and I would steal things from him and put them into the character. You know, my famous line, I had a great catchphrase. Well, that was, Jerry used to say it, and we'd be, you know, going somewhere, and I don't want to say it yet, but he would use that line. So one day in one of the episodes, it wasn't in the script, I said to Ron, you know, we were in Arnold's, and this is an audience, we're shooting Friday night, getting ready. I said, get ready, Ron, in this scene. When you come to this line, be prepared. I'm going to say something that's not in the script, but I just want, I'm telling you so I won't throw you. You know, and I didn't tell him what it was. I didn't tell anybody. And then I delivered the line, and there, Jerry went crazy, and the audience liked it. Then they started writing it in for me all the time. And it was, Jerry's line was, I still got it. That was, you know, and then it became my line because I put it in, but nobody knew. But I kind of borrowed it from Jerry, and I would do that in other things. So I think that helped me become a little funnier than I really was.
Well, you know, you mentioned earlier, like having Pat O'Brien and different people on the show. You know, I mean, Pat O'Brien, I mean, for people who don't know, was a star in the 40s and, you know, and 50s. And I mean, it's to be able to work with people of that caliber. And then Jerry Paris from the Dick Van Dyke Show, if they remember the Dick Van Dyke Show and remember Jerry, you know, as the dentist, this is
and Jerry had done some pretty big movies. I mean, he worked with Humphrey Bogart in the Caine Mutiny and The Wild Ones with Marlon Brando. He was in class at the Actors Studio with Marlon Brando, and then he did Marty He did where Ernest Borgnine won the Academy Award for that movie, and Jerry played his brother-in-law. So he had quite a broad experience, but in comedy there was not too many people like him. He was up there with Gary and the Mel Brookses and up in that league. I would put him up there.
Well, I think yes, I would agree with you. I mean, and he's unsung in that way, but that's very cool of you to point out, because a lot of people think, oh, Gary Marshall, because they're familiar with Happy Days and the movies, and then Penny Marshall as a director and things like that.
Right.
But yes, you did get to work with these people. I mean, that is true, and they got to work with you. Let's make sure it works both ways.
Oh, thank you.
But so I guess everybody thinks it must be all fun and games, if you're working with funny people doing funny comedy and stuff like that. But you're also manufacturing content for either a television audience that you're doing live, or prior to that, a one camera shoot where you're, it's just like making movies. I mean, it is a fairly serious business. It's it's long hours. It's not,
Yeah, especially the one camera days. Those were much tougher hours. They'd be shooting 12-hour days, sometimes maybe go over. And on the 3 cameras, it's a little bit easier schedule, but it's still, it's still, you got to do really good work, and there's a discipline that's part of it, and intense concentration and all of that. But I love it. And, most actors, that's part of the deal and part of the game. And they, the hardest part is getting the job. That's the hardest part, right? Then once you have it, then you're happy. But it's a tough business finding the work and at every stage. I mean, sometimes it gets easier for a while, but then there's times where now it's a little bit of a lull, a slow period, and it could be a real roller coaster. That's why Jenny has this question. Yeah. I'd love to hear if there are any painful experiences that ended up being beautiful life lessons in the long run. It's a great question. So I kind of was alluding to it. When I left Happy Days after the 7th season, and the show ran for 11 seasons, but I felt like I was playing the same character for that long, and felt the quality of the writing. It was, I don't know, it gets hard after that many years for them to keep it fresh. So it was a combination of me not wanting to just keep playing one character and be associated with this one character, and I wasn't like him to begin with, and I wanted to do so many other things as an actor. So it was a hard decision, but I decided to not renew the contract after the 7th season. Same thing that Ron Howard did, because he wanted to pursue directing. So we both didn't return. So after that, it was some tough years where, because I was trying to get away from that character. People, they wouldn't let me even come in and audition for the kinds of parts I wanted to, because they, oh no, he's from Happy Days, and he's not right for this, I know he's the wrong type. And it was incredibly frustrating, and there was some trying times that I went through. So that it was painful experiences. But I persevered and plug away and get one thing here and something here that would lead to this, and slowly open up the door a little bit, make some cracks in those barriers that had been placed around me, so to speak. But now, and it's really been opening up. I mean, it's been a gradual process, and it's some ups and downs, but in the last year is my busiest year that I've had. I did 4 movies in like 6 months, and playing such different roles, from a pastor to a polygamist, and then a guard in a prison, and then to a career criminal, and then a king. So I love it. That's what I always wanted to do as an actor, is play all different roles. And I have some new ones coming out. There's one called County Line, No Fear, where I play this career criminal. It's with Tom Wopat and Casper Van Dien. That'll be out later this year. When George Got Murdered just went on Amazon 2 days ago. It just came out, and it's I play a prison guard in the prison where Derek Chauvin was being held. That's what they're following what happened. So it's a very different kind of role.
Wow, we got to be watching for that. I was going to ask you what you had coming up because you do so many different things, and you I don't want to say that you answered, so I want to ask: in both the lean times and the good times, all these years later, what keeps you going? What is it? Is it searching for that role you want to do, or is there something else that keeps you fascinated with this business?
Yeah, I mean, I always had such passion to want to do so many different kinds of things, and I think the fact that there were years where I wasn't getting to do it, and it's like now it's finally sort of opening up. So I want to continue down that path, and there's many more roles that I want to play and direct, and scripts to direct. I have several that we're getting close on that I'm attached to direct, like 3 different films, and we're getting close on getting financing on at least one of them, and maybe 2. So I would love to do that again. It's been a while. I've directed 3 independent films so far, and the ones that I'm talking about are very exciting to me. So that's what keeps me going. Is just the passion for the work, and I love movies and television, if whatever, and theater. So I just feel there's a lot more to do, and like this is a whole next phase for me.
Oh, that's fantastic. We're going to have to wrap it up pretty quickly, but I want to ask you when we say our official goodbye, I want you to wait in the green room, if you would, for a few minutes so I can come back and say, goodbye officially. I don't want, we're not going to end the second we end, but
Jenny, I'd just like to thank Jenny for the very beautiful words that she just put out there for me. I appreciate that, Jenny, very much. Thank you. It means a lot.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. And what I wanted to say, Don, is, we haven't yet talked much about the singing, but you have a CD and you have different things that you're doing. Would you like to share some of that?
Yeah. Real quickly. I know we don't have a lot of time. I do have a CD out called Most Mostly Swinging. And it's what I was doing when I was 14, 15 years old. My first love, as I like to say, all the great standards, with the jazz feel, like the Sinatra kind of style, and Bobby Darin and Nat King Cole and some of the great jazz singers. It's always been such a huge passion of mine. And so the album is out. It's been out for several years on Amazon, iTunes, and I'm just getting ready to release a new one, and I'm really excited. I've been working with a producer in Nashville, and doing jazz standards again, but not the big band, a more contemporary jazz setting, and a few things a little different. And it turned out really, really good. And I don't know which is going to be the first single, but we're going to be announcing that soon, probably, next month. And then the CD will come out shortly after. So I don't even have a title for it yet, but I'll post about it on like Facebook and under Don Most and Twitter, and which is at Most Don, at Most_Don, and Instagram is Don Most 1. So I'll put it out there when the time comes soon, very soon.
Well, that is so fantastic, and I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed you being here and getting to talk together with you, and for our audience who are huge fans of yours. It's obvious from the comments and the questions that you're just very, very loved, and I think that's so cool. I mean, that's on you, man. That's very cool.
Yeah.
And, but I also want to give you a moment or two to however you'd like to leave our audience with any parting word or thought or or something so that.
Sure. Thank you so much for spending time with me and Rex and listening in. I sometimes forget that, that people would be interested in hearing about this stuff from so long ago. So it brings me a lot of joy and makes me feel good. And I hope that you'll feel that way about some of the future work that I have coming out, and hope to be able to do this again with you, Rex, and we'll all talk and answer questions again.
Well, that's awesome. That's very cool. And I know you're traveling soon, and I'll be back home in July sometime. Maybe we'll meet up again and get together with Lydia or Misty or somebody. But
that'd be fun.
That would be fun. But in the meantime, just happy travels and good health and much
thank you so much,
and all possible kinds of success to you.
Oh, thank you so much. Much appreciated, really.
Well, I really thank you for spending your time and sharing your light and your energy, and the memories with all of us.
Yeah, great memories indeed. Oh my God, sometimes it seems like, was that from a different life, and it's very surreal sometimes. But thank you for having me. I really enjoyed talking with you, and for all of you out there, thanks for spending the time with us.
Thank you. All right, I'll be right with you in the green room in just a couple of minutes, so
okay.
Don't mind waiting. Thank you, Don. And that is Mr. Don Most. Be sure to go ahead and visit him at realdonnymost.com. Just a note, I was going to ask him, but he said it's not necessarily updated, but he is on Twitch, on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook, so you can go find him there. And you can tell him you saw him from this show. I mean, that would be fantastic. And let him know how we've connected. I also want to say that I really do appreciate that you're here watching with us and asking questions and leaving comments and being part of this live community. Do go ahead and share this out there. Post it on your Facebook wall or LinkedIn or Twitter or Twitch or wherever it is, Instagram. But push it out there. Let other people see it and enjoy it the way you have and the way I have. And then go ahead and like it, and subscribe to it, on YouTube and all those different places. Remember that the replays are immediately available. It takes a little while to get on Roku, I believe, but they're immediately available from wherever you're watching. So if you're watching from Facebook, you can share that link right now. If you're watching from LinkedIn, you can share that right now. You're watching from YouTube, you can share that right now. So please go ahead and do that. And do like and continue to comment even in the replay, because guess what? We will see them, I am sure. So before we go, I want to thank you for being here. I got an incredible guest coming up next week. Not going to say who it is yet, but another great guest every Thursday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Eastern, and wherever you are in your local time zone, anywhere around the world. Before we go, I need to tell you about my book, Life on Your Terms, Create the Life That You Want, because that's my book that I really want you to have. And if you get it, and you get it from Amazon, I have a very, very special offer for you. It's not even an offer. It's a gift for you. And that is that if you go to here, rexsikes.com/book with your receipt code from Amazon, and you put it in the little box here and you follow the instructions at rexsikes.com/book, I want to give you a training of mine. It's valued at $497. It's called The Mastery Loop. It's on how to master your mind, your thoughts, your feelings, your behavior, so that you can start creating the results that you want and start living the kind of life that you want to live. I'm going to give that to you absolutely free as a bonus for having gotten the softback or the hardback book. Also, you should know, I don't know when it's going to be due, but they are just today. I sent the files over for the Audible version to be recorded. So hopefully at some point soon, you'll not only be able to read the book, you'll be able to listen to the book. So with that in mind, go get the book, and then, of course, claim your free training. And again, I want to thank my guest, Don Most, for being here and spending so much time with us. And I'll leave you with this. If you consider it a blessing, it's a blessing. If you consider it a problem, it's a problem. It's whatever you think it is. So whatever you do, celebrate everything. With that, I'll see you the next time.